Hey everybody, this is Kenny and Kenny Squared. I'm just kidding. That is not Kenny Squared. That was me. I'm riding solo today. This is Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. This is a special interview edition, and it is all about love, God's love, and faith. And so I got the opportunity to talk to love language linguist, say that fast 3 times, Paul Zolman. And Paul is also the author of the book, Role of Love. Paul has an amazing backstory to tell about his family and how he grew up and how that all changed and how it's so impacted by God's love, the 5 love languages, and how he is using that now to really help others, particularly youngsters in schools and families. You don't want to miss a second of this. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sports on the Positive Tip. This is where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. And this is our interview edition. We have a very special guest, and we're going to talk a lot of faith. Today. We're going to talk a lot of love today. Kenny Squared is on assignment, couldn't join us today, but I have a special guest. Love language linguist Paul Zolman has joined me on the podcast today. He's also an author of the book Role of Love. And Paul, it is so great to have you on. How you doing, sir?
Great, Kenny. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump in because you've got some amazing work that you're doing, and it's all centered around love and love languages. But you've taken it another step as to how it can really impact our society. But I want to start first with your backstory because there's some interesting things in your background. Probably interesting isn't the right word, but I'll use that anyway. Tell us about your backstory and your background and what's led you to really talk about love languages.
Thank you, Kenny. Those are great questions. And I think that as it relates to sports, my backstory is more like resistance training, that I learned the resistance, the push away part of life before I learned the better part of life. And it's always kind of like that when you're building muscle, you're building memory muscle, you're building any kind of muscle, you have to have that resistance training. So I had it first. That was the very first thing that happened to me. Now, I kind of want to start with my grandfather. My grandfather was born in Indiana, married, had 9 children. After that 9th child was born, the mother passed away. And of course, as anybody would be, he was very distraught with that. But he made some major decisions while he's distraught, which is kind of a mistake that we've all learned from the past, that you should not make major decisions when you're in that grieving stage.
Yes.
Well, he decided he was going to sell the farm and it was going to have an auction for all the equipment. When people came to the auction, Kenny, he said something like, "And would you like this child? And would you like this child? And would you like this child?" And systematically gave all the children away except for one. Thankfully, as I've done my research on this in the 1910 census, several of these children, my great or there'd be my uncles, my aunts and uncles, children or stepbrothers from my father, they were placed in homes like yourself, Kenny. Pastors had taken them in a couple at a time, and they just nurtured them. And so there were 8 children spread throughout the communities in that area at that time. He moved to Montana, took Benjamin with him, one child that he kept, took Benjamin with him, found a school teacher that had never been married, had 10 more children.
Wow.
Of that 10, my father's number 6. So he's like number 15 of 19 children.
Wow.
And my father's born in 1922. When he's 10 years old in 1932, this grandfather passes away. So now you've got 19 children that are abandoned, and you're in the middle of the Great Depression. It's a horrible time for economically and just emotionally. It was just a terrible time. I remember this grandmother though that my grandfather married in Montana. I remember her very well. She had been a school teacher and loved children. And I remember walking up the stairs to her apartment, and she was just so warm and loving and kind all the time. Just a beautiful person. Some of that transferred, some of it didn't. Some of it, just the stress of life kind of beats you up a little bit, and you just want to act tough. Well, my father graduated from 8th grade, didn't do any more schooling at all. With that type of education, he became a truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be gone during the week, and then he'd come home on Friday. And one thing I absolutely love about my father, Kenny, is that every Friday he would date my mother. Every Friday. Did not fail.
Right.
I don't ever remember him failing one time.
Wow.
I can't keep up that pace in my own life. I have
Yes, yes.
absolutely no idea how he did it, but I remember him doing this every single Friday. He wasn't very creative about it. It was always the same place. It was always the Maverick Bar, and it was always over alcohol. So I'm number 10 of 11 children, Kenny, and so generationally, my father improved the generation, went from 19 children only down to only 11.
That's 11. Yeah.
Only 11. And I only have 8. So we're improving the generation as we go. Kids only have 3. So it's just, what's up with that? I want more grandchildren. Come on. So anyway, I'm number 10 of 11. And I can imagine, I never was there, but I can imagine my mother and my father saying, well, how was your week? How was your week? And then my mother starting at the oldest child, going all the way down. Well, all the older children are brothers, except I'm sandwiched between 2 girls. And we already know that my father values women because he's taken my mom out every single Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
If I look cross-eyed at those girls that I'm sandwiched between, I'm a thorn between 2 roses. If I look cross-eyed at them, I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble. And so I tried to stay as calm and as collected as I could, keep within the rules and everything. I still got beat. And I think what happened here, Kenny, was that my father was getting annoyed. He was getting annoyed as my mother's talking about all the older brothers. And they're like puppies. They're the little puppies. They'll roll around on the ground. They'll wrestle. They'll bat at each other.
Right.
My brothers would break arms. They'd ride their motorcycles up and down. One time, one of my brothers got caught in the chain. The chain almost choked him.
Oh my
but
God.
It's all these little medical problems, more financial problems
Of course.
that were piled on my father at the time, and it was just too much. It was just overwhelming. So I'd either get the belt on the weekend or I'd get a severe spanking. And one time I remember being severely spanked so badly that I was black and blue for about 3 weeks or more.
Wow.
It was just that tough. So how do you escape? And at the time period, wasn't the network that there is nowadays. It was like Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call?
Yeah.
And it was just like that in that day. And I thought, because it was in our family, that it was just more of a family issue, that you just don't talk about it. It's something that happened in your family. For the most part, Kenny, I don't remember what I did wrong, because there's such a lag between what I did or what I did wrong to the punishment, that it was just you couldn't connect it. Absolutely. So at age 17, I'm trying to get out of this place, and I leave home and I go live with my older brother. And my older brother had a couple of children, was trying to be a great father, but I noticed he had this same issue, that he would be annoyed. He'd be stacking these annoyances until he had an angry flash. And you just kind of watch out, because you don't know how high those annoyances are at any given time, and you don't know when that flash is going to happen. And then I got married, started having children, and I realized I've got the same problem.
Wow.
So up until about age 35, Kenny, I'm still blaming my father for all my problems. And it's just like blaming someone in your ancestry that you're overweight or something like that. I mean, it wasn't their problem. You make your
Mhm.
own choices, what you're going to eat and how you're going to keep fit with your body. In
Mhm.
sports, the same thing. You know, you can change that physique, or you can change it, or use your body in a different way. I was being having that annoyances, and sometimes it happened in public, and sometimes it happened at private at home, and it would be embarrassing, awkward, very awkward in public, and just embarrassing at home. And I believe that that's part of what happened. My first marriage lasted 23 and a half years. I would think that would be contributory to the demise of that marriage, just that anger that I had. So here I am single, and after that first marriage, and I did something, I had a little midlife crisis, and was actually dating people that were online. So they're in a different city, I'm in a different city. We'd make a destination, agree on a place to meet, have a date. And so I did what I call destination dating for about a year and a half. It
Mhm.
was great midlife crisis, great fun, traveled all over the place, didn't find a thing. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that song, Kenny, looking for love in all the wrong
All the
places. It,
wrong places. Yeah.
it wasn't happening. So anyway, excuse me, just doing that. I thought I had a line on someone. I moved to Phoenix, and and it didn't work out. So my sister calls me. She's 7 hours away. She says she has a neighbor that she wants to introduce to me. I said, I don't think so. I'm done with this destination dating. It doesn't work. And she's older sister, and I'm number 10 of 11. I was the remote control, Kenny, when we were growing up. There was no remote control. I to the TV, and you turn the dial,
Yes.
and you change the channel for me.
Yes.
I never got to choose what channel to change it to. They were always just telling me what to do. So this older sister says, "Oh, come on." And I said, "Oh, got to do what big sister says." So I said, "Okay, I will email her." What kind of relationship can we develop with email, Kenny? I
Yeah.
mean, it's very, very light at anything. Well, I started emailing her, and actually, she was a very good writer, and it was just a very fun little back and forth conversation. So it got to the point, I felt a little bit more familiar with her. I said, "Well, how many times have you been married?" And she wrote back and she says, "Counting the 5 that are buried in the backyard." And it just cracked me up. I mean, I thought, this lady is a live wire. She's got a sense of humor. She's
Yeah.
got some personality. Might be worth pursuing. So I started pursuing it just a little bit more. Started actually traveling up to where my sister was, and just going back and forth on the weekends from Phoenix. I'd leave 5 in the afternoon on Friday, arrive at midnight, and then just back and forth. So it was just kind of fun that way. And then I decided I'm going to move up to be closer. The relationship grew, and we became more serious. Now it's time for big brother approval. So I'm taking her north, a couple 100 miles north, to Big Brother's house. First thing that happens when I walk in is my sister-in-law pulls her aside and said, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first I did not. It said, then it made me mad. I thought, busted, absolutely busted. I
Yeah.
thought I thought, if there's any opportunity to change the health, the fitness of that family, the Zolman family, and polish that name a little bit more, now was the time. So I
Yeah.
started reading the love language, or started reading the five the color code, and then the 5 love languages. And I really like the principles of the 5 love languages, Kenny, because Dr. Chapman's a reverend or pastor
Yes.
like yourself, and he said that practicing these 5 love languages would help you come closer to Jesus Christ, because they reconcile to the life of Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
He he touched people, he spent time with people, had the gifts of the Spirit, and we love his words.
Hmm.
All 5 love languages are incorporated into the life of Jesus Christ. I thought, I was being a Christian, I thought, that's what I want. The application, though, didn't work for me. Dr. Chapman, you mean that if I guess what Kenny's love language is and cater to that, we're going to be buddies? I'm a bad guesser. That doesn't even work for me. So that didn't work for me. And
Right.
then Dr. Chapman has this other thing in the book. It says, well, if you take this survey, I can find out what my love language is. Well, what am I supposed to do with that, Kenny? Advertise? Hello, hello, Kenny. I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? I was done with the awkward. I'd already been awkward in public situations. I didn't want that. So there's got to be a better way to learn these five love languages and bring it into your life. And I thought, well, as a child, I remember that games brought our family together. Even as dysfunctional as we were, the games brought us together. And just there was a cohesiveness there. There was still the smack talk, there was still the put downs, there was still all the humor from that angry culture in those games, but it brought us together. And I remembered that, and I thought, well, maybe I can make this a game. So I contacted Dr. Chapman and said, Dr. Chapman, are you licensing those little pictures that you have for the icons for the love languages? His attorney wrote back and said, no, we're not doing that right now. Thank heaven,
Yeah.
they're ugly. I mean, they're 30 years old. I did not want them anyway. So I thought the ideas still sound. I'm going to go talk to an attorney friend that I had. He's a copyright attorney here in town, see what he has to say. When I went there, he said that theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is.
Oh, okay.
So how you present it and put it out there is copyrightable. So in 2017, I made my own icons and put them on a little cube.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Oh,
you
that's
can
awesome. Yeah.
see right here, I've got a person holding a platter
Yeah.
representing service.
Service. Yeah.
Two hands put together with a heart with a conversation fly out. Those are the words.
Mm-hmm.
An hourglass on the hand represents the time.
Time.
A gift on the hand represents the gifts.
Yes. Yeah.
The two hands touching represent touch.
Mm-hmm.
Five love languages, six sides on the die. I created this new side to say, surprise me. So Kenny, there's just two instructions. You roll the die every day. That's the love language you practice giving away all day that day. Much like you exercise every single day, you practice, practice, practice. You will absolutely learn all five love languages over a 30-day period.
Wow.
By practicing it. You'll become what I like to call that love language linguist. It's a sexy title. I know you want that. You want to put that on your resume.
Yes.
And everybody, all your audience people do too. When you put that on your resume, just think what the employer's going to ask.
Oh.
What the heck is a love language linguist? Say, well, I just love people. They want their customers loved, and they want a loving environment within the workplace rather than a hostile environment. Loving environments are more productive. So your resume is going to rise to the top in that situation. So that's one thing. The second thing that happens after learning all five love languages to give it away. Remember, you're giving it away without any regard of or any expectation that it's coming back. You're practicing what Jesus taught about the law of the harvest, or others teach it as karma, or others teach it as a law of attraction. It's all kind of the same thing. You're planting that seed, you're sending it out without any expectation of coming back, but trusting or having the faith to know that it's coming back to you someday.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What this does for you is it improves your vision. Dr. Chapman identifies in his theory that everybody's got a primary love language and possibly a secondary love language that might be very close second to it. That's what we recognize as love. And anything else that comes our way, we might say, oh, that's nice, but they don't recognize people, and including myself, might not recognize that as love. When you know all five love languages, you can say, oh, I see they're loving on me. It's not my primary love language, but I can respond now. I can respond knowing that they're sending love my way. And it just breaks down that communication barrier of whether they're being loved or not. they are loving. You can actually determine that they're loving on you. They're using their loving muscles, sending that out, and then you can respond to that. I think that Dr. Chapman, when he says that most people will send out their primary love language in hopes that it'll come back, it kind of contaminates it a little bit for me. It becomes a transaction. It becomes like the TV show that I used to change the channel for. Let's make a deal. I mean, it becomes a transaction, and transactional. It's a business transaction. It's not love.
Right.
Reciprocity is a business transaction. It's not love. So what you're doing is you're changing that whole mindset of sending something out because you want something back, changing it from that business mindset to actually a pure love mindset. You're sending it out without any regard of it ever coming back. That's what Jesus would do. That's absolutely the way Jesus operated. He didn't ever expect people to pay him back for what healing their eyes or opening their ears. He never, I don't ever have any incidents, know of any incidents where he ever got paid back for those type of acts of service, that kindness that he did. Never. Contrast this with anger. You send anger out, it's coming right back to you. You get immediate payment. Who wants that? Why would anybody do that in the first place? Why would we do it all the time? Because we think that it helps us put other people in line. Well, guess what? That's not our job. Jesus is our judge. Just keep that in mind, that Jesus is our judge. Stay in our lane, exercise our own loving muscles, do that resistance training, just exercise our own loving muscles to send it out every single day and watch for them to light up. Now, Kenny, when they light up, now you've discovered what their primary or a secondary love language is.
Mm-hmm.
You take a mental note of that, and then you just wash, rinse, and repeat. Do it over and over again. And that's how, no longer do you have to say, can we pause this relationship? And so I can have you take this survey so I know how to love you. You don't have to do that anymore. That's so awkward. I'm done with awkward. And everybody should be done with awkward too. Just send it out, watch their reaction, use your observation skills. And use your observation muscles, so to speak, that exercise that muscle and make that observation muscle strong so that you can see what their reaction might be. And then you'll be able to cater to that if you need to, but you'll just remember what they like and send it out to them. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
So awesome. I loved every set. You had me. I'm on the edge of my seat here, Paul. This was amazing. And it's so funny. I think for the last 10, 15 minutes, I'd have to think back on the anger thing. I totally forgot about it, which tells me that that's far in your rear view mirror as well, that you replaced it with this. I'm really anxious to hear about, you talk about how this can minimize violence in schools. Have you presented this to schools, and talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's in test mode right now. And I like what you said about replacing this with anger. And I didn't talk about that, but realizing what was making me angry was being annoyed at other people. I'm rarely, Kenny, I think rarely we're ever annoyed with ourselves. I remember one time I was annoyed with myself and I didn't speak to myself for 3 days. We're always annoyed at other people and what other people do. And watching, rolling the die helped me watch for what's right about that person. Now, what can I love about that person? Instead of the focus of being annoyed, what's wrong with that person, and go down that critical path. It stopped it in its tracks because I was so busy watching for the good of other people that I didn't have any other time to go down that critical path. And why would you want to go down that critical path? I like to use a magnifying glass. If you're going to magnify something, it's going to get larger. And I remember raising the kids as an inexperienced parent. I remember raising them, and when they make a mistake, I'd be all over it because you don't want them to make that mistake. But I could have been more kind in saying, well, why don't you try it this way? Let's try it and let's see what happens if you try it this way. And just with that calm and loving voice, help lead and guide them rather than get a pounce on them because they make a mistake. And usually it's the first time. If you focus on the mistakes, they're going to get larger. Focus on the good, that's going to get larger. So in the classroom, as I'm testing this, I've got it in a test mode right now. So I've got a school that the classroom will roll the die at the beginning of the day. Then at the end of the day, what they're doing is I've got sent them a PDF of this, and it's actually a religious private school that is testing this right now, just for interest's sake. They record what they rolled, what opportunities they saw to love in that way, then what they did about those opportunities. This way, Kenny, these children are learning responsibility for their own behavior. They don't have to wait like I did until age 35 or wake up at age 35, say, oh, I'm responsible for, I don't have to, if I blame someone, it's their problem. I don't have to change. But if I take responsibility, then I've got an opportunity to refine my own behavior because I'm watching what I'm doing. So they roll the die at the beginning of the day, end of the day. I've talked to teachers around the world, Kenny, and these teachers, every single one of them, 100% of them say that the last 10 to 15 minutes of the day is absolutely non-productive. The kids have been there all day. They're antsy. They know the bell's going to ring. Their minds are mush because you've taught them so many things and they just can't absorb one more thing. Just going over their head. At that point in time, let's make this productive time and have them decompress a little bit by writing in the journal. How did they act that day? What opportunities did they see to love that day? And what did they do about it? Think back, and it's K through 6 is what I'm testing it with right now. But just think back of your first grade teacher or your second grade or any of those elementary school teachers that you had. I remember one in first grade, and I remember the sixth grade teachers' names. I don't remember any of the names of the second, third, fourth, or fifth grade. I don't remember the names of my teachers. And it's just, why do I remember first grade and why do I remember sixth grade? I think it was because I felt loved. I felt love in that classroom. And for some reason or other, excuse me, for some reason or other, that love that I felt in the classroom has transferred and kept that person's name in reverence all through these years. What if these children now, as they're recording this in first grade, the teacher will check it off, send it home. Those astute parents will keep those in a file till the very end of the year. Now you've got a love journal for that child for first grade or for third grade. Now they have the details of why did they love that teacher, Mrs. Rogers, in first grade? Why did they love that teacher, Mrs. Robbins, in sixth grade? Why did they love? And what did they do about those things? Did they bring the teacher an apple? What did they do about sending love on that particular day? And I think that developing that habit is actually going to tamp down a lot of misbehaving because they're watching for opportunities to love, opportunities, exercising those love muscles to behave correctly. They're not exercising angry muscles. We don't want them to go into that rage that is rampant nowadays. We want them to develop loving muscles. And then hopefully they'll take it to the middle school and to high school and throughout their life. That's hope.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the kid that has that rough upbringing and, and maybe they're not getting that love like that at home, but for the 6-7 hours that they're at school and they end the day like that, therefore they take that home with them. And then, what's the parent going to say? Even the toughest parent, oh, wow, okay, look at this. I will put it in a file for them. And you're so right. We remember those teachers that were kind to us. That I could still remember the smell of my second grade teacher because she would hug me. I still remember what her smock smelled like. Those things are embedded, but a lot of the bad stuff I've kind of thrown out of my head. Boy, oh boy, this is amazing, Paul. And something obviously for a lot of folks that I know to pray about here, that this gets into, even if it starts with this one school, I think it'll certainly spread. And, it's an old cliche, right? What the world needs now is love. Those are songs when you and I were little kids. but boy, oh boy, is that true now? I mean, it is absolutely true now. What's a final thing? Because I love that you talk about that this is also a tool, and I love the muscle analogy. What's a one or two final thoughts you want to leave the audience with, and then I want to ask how they can get your book and connect with you.
So we're talking about languages, Kenny, and I just want to talk about this a little different language. It's the Sanskrit dialect in northern India.
Mm,
From that Sanskrit dialect, we get a few words in our vocabulary like nirvana, we get karma, but the word I want to talk about right now is namaste. And it
mm,
takes you'll find that word given at the end of a yoga class, which it takes discipline to do yoga. And the teacher, it doesn't mean that, hey y'all, class is over and namaste and they're sending them on their way. It doesn't mean goodbye. It doesn't mean anything like that. But really, the Hindu interpretation is what I love. It means that the God in me sees the God in you.
mm.
Or put another way, the divine in me sees the divine in you. And I think that as we exercise our discipline and our loving muscles, that we want to be able to always look for the good in people. It's always there. It always is there.
No
You
doubt.
you just have to look for it. You have to watch for it. And it's just like learning a new word, Kenny. If you learn a new word, pretty soon you're going to find out that you are hearing it all the time where you never heard it before, and now it's brand new, but now it really actually wasn't really brand new. It's just like that whatever we're watching for is what we're going to see. Let's watch for the good in people, and uh, let's enunciate that. Let's have the discipline to focus on that and enlarge that, magnify that good. Just like when you exercise, you're trying to bulk up your muscles and trying to make those muscles stronger. You can do that with love too. And love, this is just the beginning, Kenny. And I want to just use the analogy that I used before, that as I was stacking annoyance on top of annoyance to get to that flash of anger, you could stack kindness upon kindness upon kindness upon kindness using these love languages to get those higher laws of love, like compassion,
Yeah.
like mercy, like forgiveness, like sympathy, like empathy, like intimacy. All those things need to have kindness precede them before you ever get to that level, that higher level of love. And we all really need to be there, but we don't have the basics down. And
Yeah.
that's why this simple way to insert the basics of the love languages into your life, that's what the tool is all about.
Amen. Amen. And everything you named is where Jesus wants us every single day, you know. Oh man, I'll be praying for you and praying behind this, and so will a lot of other people that'll listen. How can people get the book, Paul, and connect with you?
So I have a bundle package going on right now, Kenny, special in this time frame right now, and it's the die, it's the book, and it's the journal for $29.99. It's
Mhm,
a whole lot less than even one session of therapy.
mhm.
And what this does for you is between sessions of therapy, if you're in therapy, between sessions of therapy, now you've got something concrete in your hand that you can work with and focus on changing that, having that paradigm shift, changing whatever behavior. For me, it was anger. It could be any behavior, but changing that, whatever it is that you're struggling with, whether it's depression or anything else, changing that to watch for loving opportunities all day long, all day. No longer is it just to your significant other, like Dr. Chapman said, it's all day long. This is a
Hey,
full-time job. So
absolutely.
they can find all that at rolloflove.com. And I did a play on words. ROLL is what you do with the die outside of you. ROLE is the change within. So ROLE of love.com.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll make sure that that's in the show notes. Paul, it has been an honor to spend some time with you today and to hear your story. Thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable. And what an amazing, amazing journey you're on. God bless it, and I hope it continues. Let God be behind every single step that you are taking here, and I'll be watching your story closely and staying in touch. Thank you again so much for joining us today.
Kenny, it's been my pleasure, and thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, folks. So we're going to leave it there. This has been Sports on the Positive Tip with Kenny, minus Kenny Squared today, and with Paul. We'll talk to you real soon.